The Kelly Clarkson show opened with glitter and glamour, perfectly fitting for Paris Hilton's entrance. Kelly introduced her as a cultural icon who had defined an era, and the audience cheered wildly as Paris glided onto the stage. Dressed flawlessly and smiling with practiced confidence, she seemed ready to promote her new fragrance and upcoming documentary. For the first 10 minutes, the conversation was light and cheerful. Kelly praised her reinvention from party girl heiress to savvy business mogul, and Paris responded with polite laughter. Yet, beneath her polished smile, a faint stiffness in her posture hinted at unease. The shift came abruptly. With a grin, Kelly leaned in and asked, "Do you ever regret playing that ditzy character for so long? Some people say it wasn't a great influence on young girls back then." The audience chuckled nervously, sensing the sharpness of the question. Paris's smile froze. "That wasn't a character. That was me," she replied firmly, her voice carrying an edge the crowd hadn't expected. Kelly tried to brush it off with a laugh. "Come on, Paris, you're way smarter than that." But Paris didn't laugh. Her expression hardened. "I played into people's assumptions because it was a survival mechanism, and it built me a billion-dollar brand. I've been underestimated my entire life. It's time people gave me credit." Kelly nodded, but then added softly, "I just think it sent mixed messages." The words landed like another jab. The audience clapped uncertainly, unsure whether to support Kelly's honesty or Paris's defense of her legacy. Paris leaned back, her eyes flashing. "You know what, Kelly? You're part of the problem. You're judging me without understanding what I went through." Kelly looked startled. "I didn't mean it like that." "Yes, you did," Paris cut her off. "I'm not here to be mocked on national television." Gasps swept through the audience. Kelly raised her hands, trying to de-escalate. "Paris, I respect you. I just—" "Respect?" Paris's voice rose. "You call this respect? I came here to share my story, and instead you're dragging me back to 2005, acting like I'm a joke." She slapped her cue cards onto the couch with a loud smack that echoed in the hushed studio. Kelly froze, eyes wide, but Paris was already standing. She adjusted her dress, her face a mask of anger and hurt. "I don't need this," she said coldly. "Paris, please," Kelly urged. "Let's just finish. People want to hear from you." "Not like this. I deserve better." Paris's voice cracked slightly, then steadied. Without another glance, she turned on her heel and strode off stage. The cameras caught a brief shot of her storming past crew members before cutting back to Kelly, who sat stunned in her chair. The audience murmured in shock, torn between applause and silence. Kelly forced a nervous smile and muttered, "Well, that just happened," drawing uneasy laughter. Backstage, chaos erupted. Paris refused to return, demanding her team escort her out immediately. Producers scrambled over whether to continue the taping or scrap the segment entirely. Within minutes, audience members began posting online. Clips leaked to social media, and hashtags like Darks Paris vs Kelly and Hilton Storms Off trended within the hour. Fans split instantly. Some praised Paris for defending herself, others accused her of overreacting. Entertainment outlets rushed to cover the drama. "Paris Hilton walks off the Kelly Clarkson show after explosive clash" became the headline. Across TMZ, People, and E! News. What had been a talk show mishap was now a cultural flashpoint. That evening, Paris fueled the fire with a cryptic Instagram post. "I will never let anyone diminish my journey or silence my truth. Period." Millions of likes poured in. Kelly, meanwhile, released a video statement. She insisted she hadn't meant to disrespect Paris, but stood by her belief that celebrities influenced culture and should be questioned about it. Her fans applauded her honesty, while critics accused her of backtracking. The next day, the fallout intensified. Morning shows replayed the clip on loop, dissecting every pause and gesture. On Twitter, the digital war exploded with Dajan Team Paris and Yar Team Kelly trending side by side. Paris's celebrity friends quickly weighed in. Kim Kardashian tweeted, "So, proud of Paris Hilton for standing her ground. She paved the way for so many of us. Don't let anyone rewrite your story, sis." Nicole Richie posted a throwback photo of herself with Paris, captioned, "Never underestimate this woman. She's stronger than she looks." Kelly's supporters fired back, accusing Paris of weaponizing Hollywood connections to attack a host, just doing her job. Neutral voices suggested the incident highlighted how women in media are judged more harshly than men. Kelly, normally seen as warm and approachable, looked shaken. On her next show, she tearfully addressed the incident. "I've been judged my whole career, too. I'd never want anyone to feel mocked by me." The audience gave her a standing ovation, but online reactions remained divided. Some saw it as genuine, others as damage control. Behind the scenes, NBC executives were alarmed. Advertisers demanded reassurance. Producers floated the idea of a reconciliation interview, but Paris's team dismissed it as too little, too late. Instead, Paris sat down with Variety. She revealed how Kelly's words had triggered painful memories of years spent being mocked by the media. "When you've been a punchline for half your life, you don't tolerate being dismissed anymore," she said. The piece painted her as a survivor and savvy entrepreneur, bolstering sympathy in her favor. In response, Kelly's team released behind-the-scenes footage of Paris laughing with crew before the taping, suggesting the blow-up had been exaggerated. The move backfired, with critics accusing the show of smearing Paris instead of taking accountability. By then, the feud had transcended daytime TV. CNN ran a segment titled "Celebrity Meltdowns or Media Exploitation," while the New York Times published an op-ed arguing the clash symbolized the double standards women face in media, expected to smile through criticism while their mistakes are endlessly replayed. Even late-night hosts joined in. Stephen Colbert joked, "Paris Hilton stormed off the Kelly Clarkson show, proving once again that what happens on daytime TV doesn't always stay on daytime TV." What began as a single tense question on a talk show had spiraled into a national conversation about respect, reinvention, and the line between honest journalism and public shaming. It was supposed to be lighthearted, the kind of late-night moment that leaves audiences smiling and clips trending online by morning. Stephen Colbert's show had built its reputation on clever satire and warm banter with celebrities, a space where even political jabs were softened with comedy. When the guest was someone like Danny DeVito, a Hollywood veteran with decades of both comedic and dramatic roles under his belt, the expectations were even higher. People tuned in not just for the jokes, but for the sheer unpredictability of DeVito's presence. From the moment the curtain parted and he waddled onto the stage, arms stretched wide like he was greeting an old neighborhood friend, the audience erupted in laughter. He cracked a joke before even reaching his chair, his raspy voice echoing over the applause, and for a brief moment it seemed like the segment would be exactly what everyone anticipated: playful, irreverent, and memorable in the best way. Stephen greeted him warmly, leaning into the bit as he always did, but there was something different in DeVito's energy that night. It wasn't the loose, carefree persona audiences knew from countless interviews and appearances. Beneath the surface, there was a flicker of defiance. He still delivered his lines with comedic timing, but the edges were sharper, the tone just a little heavier than usual. When Stephen lobbed the first softball question about Danny's latest project, expecting a funny anecdote or an offhand quip, the actor shot back with sarcasm, turning the industry itself into the punchline. The audience laughed, but the laughter carried a nervous quality, as if people weren't sure whether they were in on the joke or witnessing something more raw. Stephen tried to guide the conversation back to safer ground, but things shifted when He pressed Danny on some of his past controversies, particularly his outspoken political stances. The mood in the room seemed to tighten. Danny leaned back in his chair, smirk tugging at his lips, and said with deliberate slowness, "Oh, so that's where we're going, huh?" Stephen chuckled, aiming to frame it as banter. But the gleam in Danny's eyes told a different story. His voice dropped into something weightier, and he accused late-night hosts of using actors as props for viral moments instead of having genuine conversations. The crowd gasped, then released an awkward laugh, unsure whether to applaud his candor or wait for Stephen to steer things back into safer waters. Stephen, never one to shy away from confrontation when it could be turned into comedy, responded with a sharpened edge. "Well, Danny, maybe if your answers weren't built for Twitter fights, we'd have a smoother time." The line landed like a spark in a dry field. Danny leaned forward, his finger wagging at Stephen, his body language suddenly far more serious than playful. "You sit there every night, Stephen, acting like the moral compass of America. But let's be honest, you're in the same game as the rest of us. Ratings." His bluntness dropped over the studio like a curtain. For a moment, the tension silenced. The laughter. Stephen smiled tightly, but his eyes betrayed irritation. "That's rich, Danny," he countered, coming from someone who's made a career out of caricatures while preaching authenticity. The audience reacted with a mix of oohs and applause, but the balance had tipped. What began as late-night sparring had morphed into something much rawer. Danny clenched his jaw, visibly restraining himself, but Stephen pressed forward. His next remark was the one that tipped the whole exchange over the edge. "You've made a career of being funny and lovable, but maybe people don't want lectures." From the guy who starred in Batman Returns as a penguin. The words hit hard. The insult, disguised as humor, sliced deeper than anyone expected. Danny slammed his hand on the table, the sound reverberating through the studio. He leaned into the microphone, his voice sharp. "You think because you hide behind jokes you can say whatever you want. I've been around longer than you, kid, and I don't need your approval." The audience gasped, some breaking into applause. In support, others frozen in disbelief. Stephen tried to salvage the tone with humor, but it was too late. Danny abruptly stood, his chair screeching against the floor, the sound cutting through the air like a warning. The audience fell silent, sensing the gravity of the moment. Stephen, caught off guard, tried to defuse. "Danny, come on, don't do this." But DeVito waved his hand dismissively. "I don't play games for laughs when I'm being disrespected." Tugging at his jacket, he glanced once at the audience before throwing his final line. "Enjoy your ratings." He shot Stephen a pointed look, then turned and walked off stage. The house band hesitated, unsure whether to play him off or let the silence linger. The live taping stalled awkwardly as cameras scrambled to capture the moment. Stephen turned toward the audience, and then the camera, forcing a laugh. "Well, folks, sometimes the show doesn't go the way you plan. We'll be right back." His delivery, usually sharp and confident, faltered under the weight of the moment. The tension was unmissable. Backstage, staff hurried to calm Danny, but he refused to return. By the time the taping ended, social media had already exploded. Audience members uploaded shaky phone footage of his fiery exit. Within minutes, hashtags like DeVito storms out and Dr. Colbert clash trended worldwide. The next morning, the fallout dominated headlines. Commentators dissected the moment endlessly, some siding with Stephen, calling Danny overly sensitive, while others defended the actor, praising him for refusing to play along with what they saw as late-night smugness. Memes flooded the internet, comparing his storm-off to his iconic penguin walk from Batman Returns. The incident had transcended typical celebrity gossip. It became a cultural conversation about authenticity, comedy, and the fine line between entertainment and exploitation.